Are you a business owner or executive who needs more results from your marketing team? Do you struggle to measure the results of your marketing spend? Or do you need to spend less time running marketing personally? A metrics marketer fractional CMO can help. A fractional CMO delivers measurable results and value by combining real-world experience with a proven marketing framework and process, all at a fraction of the price of a full-time marketing leader. We manage and enhance your existing marketing team while creating programs designed to drive awareness, revenue, and growth for your company. Let us create, manage, and deploy a marketing strategy to help you reach your goals faster. Visit yourfcmo.com. That's yourfcmo.com to request a free, no obligation consultation. Mention 3YPC for a special discount of 10% off our services. Grow your business faster with a fractional CMO.
Chris and the guys at Greenview Construction LLC are a firm offering professional services in design and, of course, construction. And they are proud to announce that they've completed design and 3D renderings for 2 spec home models located in the Jupiter and Palm Beach Gardens area, sitting on over 1 acre lots. Now, they've got 4 lots available for these model homes. The first is a British West Indies model style, totaling just over 4,500 square foot, air-conditioned space, 5 bedrooms, 5 bathrooms, and they boast 16-foot ceilings in some areas. The second, more traditional style home, 3,100 square foot, air-conditioned space, 4 bedrooms and 4 baths. They boast 14-foot ceilings in some areas. Both models will have a free-flowing layouts that connect the kitchen, the family room, living room, library, a den, and outdoor lanai. And both models will have an option to add a detached in-law suite if you really want the in-laws to move in, and a garage totaling an additional 1,000 square foot. You can visit Chris and the team online at www.greenviewconstruction.com. You can email Chris Tyson, that's C Tyson as in Mike Tyson, C Tyson at greenviewconstruction.com, or you can call 561-727-5013. They're also on Facebook, they're on Instagram, they're on Twitter. Just look for Greenview Construction. And if that wasn't enough, they have an appointment-only showroom at 715 Commerce Way West, Suite 14 in Jupiter, Florida.
This show is brought to you by Prize Picks. Prize Picks is a revolutionary new daily fantasy game whereby you pick 2, 3, or 4 players to go over or under their fantasy point projections, and if you're correct, you win. Pick 2 or more players from the same sport or league, or go cross leagues for your parlay. Use the promo code 5, that's FIVE 5, and receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100. But first, sign up at prizepicks.com to start winning today.
Welcome to 3 Yards Per Carry, a podcast covering the Miami Dolphins and the NFL. Now, here's your hosts, Chris, Alf, and Simon.
And we're on, and welcome to another edition of 3 Yards Per Carry. These are our draft guide shows. Hello, Simon.
Hello, Alf.
All right. Chris is not here, by the way, because he's preparing for his trip to Las Vegas, of which I am also going to be on. So he's not here, but we do have Simon here. And Simon has done it once again. His draft guide is out right now. You can get it. Tell the people how they can get this draft guide, because I'm perusing it right now, and I tend to agree with a few of your rankings.
Cool. Well, if you go to, there's a link at read optional, all one word, read optional, like in a read option play, readoptional.substack.com/p/draft guide. That is where you will, that's where you can find it. In fact, you don't even need to have the P in. You can just read optional.substack.com/draft guide. Or you can go to my Twitter at CyClancy or at Gridiron or at Read Optional, which is where you'll find it. And essentially it's $7. And you subscribe to a Read Optional, which you can unsubscribe as whenever you like, but it just gives you access to all the Read Optional written work that Ollie Connolly does, which is amazing, and also the draft guide. But you can download the draft guide and then unsubscribe to the Read Optional. That's just a kind of option for people that want to stay on and kind of have good readings. So yeah, that's where you get it.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure that you will log on to the 3 Yards Per Carry Twitter account and put an ad on there as well, right?
Absolutely, I shall.
Yeah, and I'm looking through this thing, and just like last year, it's colorful, it's succinct. Like you get I don't know how to call this, but I guess it's the skinny. It's basically the straight scoop on a player. Then you have like a deep dive. Then you talk about off the field issues, or if not, or if he's, actually a Boy Scout. But it's pretty thorough. It's as thorough a draft guide as I've ever seen. And I used to buy Mel Kiper's for the better part of 20 years. So this is a very good looking thing. It's 123 pages by my Adobe. I don't know how many it comes out to other.
It was 123,000 words.
Yeah. It's a lot. But yeah, it's a great guide. Like, just get it. Do what I do also, I go and I have it printed out, so I can have it handy. And the draft guide too. I will have that in Las Vegas, so that'll be my cheat sheet. Okay, while I'm there for 3 days, where and basically all we're gonna do is just watch the board, and then just wait for 2 picks that the Dolphins will or will not make on day 2, late on day 2. But yeah, as always, this show is brought to you by Manscaped. Use promo code 5RSN and get 20% off your entire order. All right, let's start with defensive lineman.
Interior
Simon,
or exterior?
Let's go exterior. Let's go with some edge players. Simon, do you care to guess what's the surest thing in the NFL draft going on? How many years is this? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years. What's the surest thing in the NFL draft?
Defensive lineman will go in the top 3, top 10. I don't know.
Well, that didn't happen this past year because Jalen Phillips went a little later.
Yeah.
The surest thing is, if you take the first edge player in the NFL draft, you have yourself a Pro Bowl performer, although we don't know about Jalen Phillips.
Right.
But you pretty much have yourself a very, very good player for a very long time. Let's start in 2013, where Deion Jordan got taken 3rd. Okay, let's pass 2013. Let's start in 2014, Jadeveon Clowney. 15, Leonard Williams. 16, Joey Bosa. 17, Myles Garrett. 18, Bradley Chubb. 19, Nick Bosa. 20 is Chase Young, and last year was Jalen Phillips. That's a pretty good run at the top of the edge draft list, which begs the question: who do you have as number 1, and does he belong in this group?
Aiden Hutchinson, just about. You're going to get a high floor prospect. I think, he reminds me of Justin Smith a little bit, the old 49ers and Bengals player, a little bit lighter, although I thought he played heavier than he weighed at the combine. He is not going to necessarily beat you running the arc every snap. He's not the quickest off a snap, but he is a athletic, hardworking, inside-outside guy, can play the run. He ticks a lot of boxes. He has a pass rush plan. He gives you 60 minutes of complete all-out effort. He's just a really good player. He can, he converts speed to power. He'll chop hands away. He'll knife through using dips or rips or swims or push pulls. He can control the tempo of his rush. He won't offer you the same menu twice in terms of what he delivers. He's not going to run the arc down 1, run the arc down 2. He will cut inside. He will counter. He will, all those sorts of things. So you're going to get in 60 minutes of a tough time. And he just doesn't take a play off. Great kid off the field as well. A real sort of mature, intelligent, high character team captain.
Yeah, and highly productive. 14 sacks last season, and 16 and a half tackle for losses. All of that absolutely checks out. And when we move off of him, Next Gen Stats is quickly becoming one of my favorite things to peruse, because if they're anything but definitive, and I guess hot takey would be the word, because they have takes. They consider only Aiden Hutchinson and Kayvon Thibodeau as the only 2 first-round edge players, or the only 2 players that are worthy of being taken in the first round. I don't know what Trayvon Walker did to them, but your thoughts on the Georgia edge player, and is he the best in that group of Georgia defenders?
I think it's such an interesting question about the Georgia defenders because you look at them across the line. You've got, Trayvon Walker, you've got Jordan Davis, you've got Devonta Wyatt, you've got Channing Tindall, Quay Walker, Nakobe Dean at the second level. You've got Lewis Sine, Darion Kendrick. Next year, you'll have Keely Ringo, who'll be a high first-round pick. So which of those players benefited most out of the other brilliant players around them? And it's a really interesting question to answer. I don't think it was Walker because I think he's probably got the highest ceiling, potentially, of any player in the draft. Like, again, he's not going to be this kind of guy who will end up with 15, 20 sacks a season. But he's got this combo platter of speed and versatility and power that is kind of second to none. I just highlight a play against Alabama. He takes on this combo block of Evan Neal, who's a top 5 pick, top 8 pick, and Cameron Latu, the tight end, who will be one of the higher rated tight ends next year in the draft. Stuns the pair at the line of scrimmage, locks out Neal with one arm, long right arm, holds him, rips away, essentially shoves Neal, almost to the floor, avoids Latu by shoving past him, and then takes down Brian Robinson, a 227-pound running back, with one arm. I mean, he is incredibly athletic, and I never fall in love with guys who are just good testers, but fastest ever 40 for an edge rusher over 270 pounds, the 11th best broad jump of an edge rusher of all time, the 4th best 3-cone. But it's not workout warrior stuff because his performances show up again and again on tape, whether that's physicality against the run, whether it's playing inside, outside, whether it's, you see him against Florida dropping back into coverage, almost making an interception, looking like a 230-pound linebacker. So he is comes from a Marine family. His father served in Operation Desert Storm, so he's very smart. He was well brought up. He's kind of just that freak of nature athletically. And I think he can do a number of things as just this versatile. You look at his art, his strength, his understanding of leverage, all those sorts of things. He's got heavy hands. I really like him. I think he's a really interesting player.
And what do you make of, and not to harp on next gen stats, but that's a pretty definitive statement to say that only 2 guys are worthy of a first round pick. You obviously disagree because I've been reading through your draft guide, and you like about 4 guys, I would say. Am I right? 4 guys to go in the first round?
Yeah, I mean, I think Davis will go in the first round. I think Tyndall will go. I think Nakobe Dean will go in the first round. I think Lewis Sine will probably go in the first round, and Walker will go in the first round. So, and then you look at Quay Walker, linebacker, Channing Tindall. These are solid day 2 picks. Darion Kendrick had run faster than a 4.75 at his pro day. He would have gone in, probably gone on day 2 as well. So yeah, I think there's a lot of good players on that Georgia defense. And they're just good players for good players' sake, It doesn't have to always. There doesn't always have to be a kind of a, who's the? Maybe it's just a collection of really good footballers, and that's what it looks like.
Mm-hmm. Now, maybe it's that first name that I mentioned when I rattled off all those names in a row that have been like successes. It kind of sucks though that the Dolphins are the only one that don't have a success in the last 10 years, taking the first edge player in Deion Jordan, although he's still playing. He's on a 49ers roster right now. But that takes us to Kayvon Thibodeau. Is it just unfortunate we're just remembering other Oregon edge players that have not necessarily panned out, and he's getting saddled with that? Is he the real deal, or is there reason for concern or suspicion?
I think there's a little bit of a reason for concern in that, he plateaued a little bit. I felt in 2021, obviously there was an injury. He missed a couple of games with the ankle injury. He has got the best get off in the draft, or the second best get off actually in the draft. He's got great ability, quickness to get off the line of scrimmage. I wonder about his ability to bend completely. I don't think he's ultra flexible, but he's an incredibly confident, and I think so. He's incredibly well read. He's very intelligent. He, when he went to Oregon, he wanted to find out what the plan was for a life outside football. He's interested in the media. He's interested in being a lawyer. He has, he's a chess lover. He'll challenge strangers to games on Venice Beach. He has his own cryptocurrency. He worked with Phil Knight to set up an NFT whilst he was at Oregon in terms of working with Nike. He worked with the guy who created Air Jordans and Phil Knight to set up this. He's got all sorts of things going on away from football that he is very interested in. Life, the NFL is scared of difference. The NFL is scared of change. The NFL doesn't want individuals. Peter King reported a couple of weeks ago that one GM who met with him in Indy said he found him to be a me guy. And that may be that why his stock is taking a bit of a tumble. He turned up at the combine, ran a 4.50, 4.40, and then said he was tired and wanted to go home, which he just did. And that turned a few teams off.
Yeah, I would say so.
Yeah, he's got a modern edge body. His arm length isn't ideal, but he's got that great explosion. He can drop off into coverage, although he doesn't look entirely comfortable. And there are games against Washington State, against Abraham Lucas, where he's shut down. There are other games where he looks absolutely dominant. He's got good hands. I think he'll probably come in the league and have a fairly big impact. But I don't think he'll be for everybody's taste, because the NFL, like I said, just doesn't find difference sexy, interesting, important. So I can see why teams are a little bit worried.
All right. And moving off of Thibodeau, Jermaine Johnson is going to draw a lot of comparisons, basically because he's long and lean and he went to Florida State with Brian Burns. Where are the similarities? Where are they different? And what do you think of him as a prospect?
Yeah, I love Jermaine Johnson, actually. Again, another Georgia player. So Georgia transfer, had a great final season at FSU. I suppose the question would be, what happened at Georgia? I think he's a pretty complete edge player, actually. He's a good pass rusher. You go and watch him against your guys, against Miami.
Mm-hmm.
He gave Zion Nelson absolute fits. He spun to the other side and gave Jared Williams absolute fits.
I think he sent Zion Nelson out of the first round.
I think he sent Zion Nelson. I think he kept Zion Nelson in school for another year.
Yes, I tend to agree.
At the Senior Bowl, I watched him up close. He was working with Kelvin Shepherd, the former Dolphins linebacker. He's now the linebacker coach of the Lions. He's just built differently. He's just so long. He's got such long arms. He obviously, if you watch Last Chance U, he was in season 3 of Last Chance U. He's just very powerful. He's very fast. So he ran a 155 10-yard split at the combine, which is incredibly fast. He gives great effort away from the ball. He will run past his own teammates to get to the footballer in terms of backside, running down players' backside. I think he's a really, really good player. I think he'll end up going in the top 10 or 12. And like 6'5", 254 pounds, can get to the quarterback, can play the run. He's a nice player.
Yeah, he checks every single box. Now, Dolphin fans make this mistake, and I've seen it, and it's been repeated many a time on OnlyFans. They look at that pick 102, and they look at pick at 125, and they think, okay, we package those, and we'll fill a need with those picks. I don't think that's the way they're thinking about those two picks. And if they are, I think they're making a huge mistake. So I think BPA, if there was a time to just take the BPA, the best player available, at 102 or 125, or package those two to move up maybe 10 or 15 spots to get what you perceive to be the best player available, I think that's what you do with those two picks. Which brings us to the Dolphins, and as far as edge players, as on the roster right now, they got to be pretty happy with Emmanuel Ogbah, Jalen Phillips. You got Andrew Van Ginkel bringing up the rear on both ends, and then you have possibly Melvin Ingram, who can sign. I'm told that they gave him an offer. We shall see if he signs before this thing airs or before the draft. But if you look at the roster, they can use a developmental guy, or a guy for the bottom of the roster on the edge. Maybe insurance against Andrew Van Ginkel leaving in a year, because he is a free agent. And who knows, maybe he fires off a nice season and he's gone because they just can't pay him, because you're going to have two pretty expensive edge players pretty soon. So your thoughts at 102 and 105 as far as an edge player for the Dolphins?
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me at all if they signed a defensive end or an edge at that position. I know people are talking about offensive line and centers and those sorts of things. I think if you look at the players that they're bringing in on their 30 visits, it's 90% defense. It's a lot of defensive backs. It's a lot of pass rushers. They brought in most recently. You look at guys like who's the kid at Western Kentucky? So D'Angelo Malone of Western Kentucky, the former Conference USA Defensive Player of the Year. He played really well in the Senior Bowl. Dolphins have spent a lot of time with him. He's 6'4", 243. High motor kid, well-liked, was on Bruce Feldman's 2021 and 2022 freak list. He's a bit of a kind of a Yannick Ngakoue, Bruce Irvin kind of pass rushy, sort of raw, but he's more versatile because I think he can play 3-4 outside linebacker, especially ones that use stand-up edges like we do, because he seems a perfect fit for that. He's a really easy mover in space. He'll drop off in coverage. He's very, very versatile. You look at his stat sheet, he's got sacks, tackles for losses, pressures, forced fumbles, fumble recoveries, scoop and scores, block kicks, pass breakups, and interceptions to his name, all at Western Kentucky. So he's one player that you look at. Dominique Robinson, again, hadn't seen any film of him at the Senior Bowl. By the end of the day, the first day, I'd sort of marked my notepad with his name underlined, went back and watched him in the evening and was like, okay, this was a kid that was making a lot of noise for Miami of Ohio. Was a former high school quarterback who then played 3 seasons as a wide receiver, only switching to edge rusher in 2020, and then just played 4 games, obviously, in the COVID season. But he's got 84-inch wingspan. He's very fluid. He gave Bernard Ryman fits all day, every day. He's very explosive, 41-inch vertical at the combine. He's burst, he's bend, he's body control. He's a very, very interesting player. I mean, the guy I absolutely love in the draft that we don't talk about and is actually bigger than those two, and I have him significantly more highly rated than probably most people, and that's Nick Benito of Oklahoma, who I absolutely love. Yeah, he's a stand-up outside linebacker in Oklahoma's defense. He's 6'3", he's 248, he ran a 4.54, he looked fantastic in drills. He has got the fastest first step in the draft. Of that, there is no doubt. He is so versatile, so disruptive. He's a burst, dip, bend guy. He understands angles. He has the flexibility to get to the quarterback by using those angles. He'll rush many from the high side, but he gets off the ball so quickly. He'll spin, he'll stutter. He's really well balanced. He'll drop off in underneath in coverage. He'll play as a spy. He can hoover up scrambling quarterbacks. I absolutely love him. I think he's just an athletic wonder. He's a 4-star recruit. He's obsessed with football. And most of all, he is a Miami Dolphins fan. Nick Benito of Oklahoma, number 11, if you're watching any tape this evening or whatever, is such a good player. And I think he'll be a significantly better pro than he is a collegian.
All right. Now I'm going to ask you about one player, and we can move off of the edge players and defensive ends. A guy who I think fits the build as a 5 tech is Zachary Carter of Florida. Your thoughts of him and your thoughts of him as at 102 or 125. Will he be there? Am I overestimating his worth at 102, 125? And how do you like his fit?
No, I think he's a really interesting player, actually. And like the biggest issue for me is that, like, he's a really great kid. The biggest issue for me is that he's had some off-field issues. He got ejected against Missouri. He ran onto the field, started throwing punches. He was suspended for a game. But he's kind of turned it around. He's now a member of the SEC community team. I find him a really interesting. He's sort of defensive tackle / defensive end hybrid. He's 6'4", 282. He is a mismatch outside, even for power-wise, certainly. But then can kick back inside and use that strength as a 5 technique, or come in on sub packages inside where he collapses the pocket. Long arms. He's got the ability to get to the top of his rush and redirect. He can convert speed to power. He can, and therefore unbalance his man. You watch him on tape. He'll walk tackles back into the lap of the quarterback. What he's done, and what I really like, is that he's gone back and looked at his life, because he was a high 4-star recruit. He's essentially turned his life around. He's changed his eating habits. He's got leaner. He's got faster. He's gone into the weight room to get stronger. And then he spent countless hours working with offensive linemen so that he can create more explosion at the snap, work on a more consistent pass rush plan, to the point where there's not only nuance to how he attacks a tackle, but he's developed those 3rd and 4th moves that a lot of players leaving college don't have. Love the relentless nature to his game. I think he's good against the run. I'd like to see him shed a little better when he's engaged, but he's a good player. He's a good player. I like him a lot.
All right. And I lied. I'm going to ask you about one more defensive end. Our quarterback, Tua Tagovailoa, has a cousin in the draft. Went to Notre Dame. Myron Tagovailoa Amosa. Your thoughts of him as a player? I would say UDFA or
no. I suspect late day 3 guy. He might be an undrafted free agent. I'm just trying to find him, actually, because I think I'd probably put him in defensive tackles rather than defensive ends. But I suspect he gets drafted. because he's like he's a high character kid. He's well regarded by staff around Notre Dame. He is a kind of versatile, disruptive guy. He's just an irritant. Do you know what I mean? He's an irritating high motor. So he's got these like 3 mantras: be high motor, maximum effort, get to the ball. And that's what he did. He played DT and 3 technique for his first 4 years at Notre Dame, and then essentially played defensive end as a grad student. And so he can play inside, outside. He can leverage guards. He's got good mass. He's 82 pounds. So he's a bit of a tweener, and he's probably maxed out a little bit physically, but he'll shoot the gap. He'll get off the ball quickly. You know, like we just talked about with Zachary Carter, what Tagovailoa Amosa lacks is those consistent secondary moves, and he doesn't really have the juice or the burst to get home. But there's a nice little package of skills here. You watch him against Pitt. He'll walk the guard back into Kenny Pickett. He uses the guard's body literally as like pins at a bowling alley to knock Pickett down. He's got a bit of a spin move. He's got a nice swim. He's powerful with the ball rush. You know, he's got hustle. He's also got injury issues. So, you know, he missed all but 2 games in 2018 with a broken foot, and has missed games. Maybe it's a Tagovailoa trait, but he's missed games in each of 2019, 2020, 2 in 2021. But a team captain, almost joined the Navy. Just a really good kid.
All right, moving off of edge players and defensive ends, we're going to move on to the interior. Back to next gen stats. They consider this the worst interior defensive line class in the last 16 years. Do you agree with that? They have only 1 guy worthy of a first round grade, and that's Jordan Davis. They have 3 guys worthy of a first or second round grade, and Jordan Davis, DeMarvin Leal, Devonta Wyatt, and that's it.
Right.
Is it as bad a class as it looks on paper?
I can't remember the last 16 drafts. I don't think it's that bad a class. I mean, I have Devonta Wyatt as the number 1 defensive tackle because he's just got great get off.
He can play 3 downs, unlike Jordan Davis. You agree with me, by the way. Jordan Davis is probably going to play 2 downs in the NFL.
Well, I mean, that's the concern about Jordan Davis is that, you know, the bigger question for him is he has no pass rush potential really whatsoever. You know, and therefore, if his values as a 2-down disruptor, does that lessen his final draft spot? You know, he doesn't play 3rd downs. You know, that he doesn't play 3rd downs. I think he played, there's a stat, and I can't remember what it is, but he played 18% of 3rd down snaps at Georgia. I mean, that's a hugely small number. You know, he is obviously, he's the physical freak who ran the ridiculous time. He's fairly unique as a sort of space-eating, run-stuffing, pocket disruptor. But I think scheme is going to have to be pretty critical for him. Is he a 4-3 defensive tackle? Is he a nose tackle in a 34 front? I don't necessarily see him as a Vita Vea type who just soaks up double teams and stops running backs between the tackles. Do you know what I mean? I feel like, you know, to get the best out of him, you also want to free him up and give him a bit of a free role to disrupt the pocket as a kind of agent of chaos. As much as anything, but yeah, I mean, why isn't he on the field for 3rd downs? He has 3 sacks the past 2 seasons, struggles to change direction, can't gather himself when he is redirected. He plays a little bit high. Effort wise, there's lots of examples. I can give you lots of examples of him playing with sort of minimal effort, which would worry me. You know, this is a kid who, you know, he hid in the high school bathroom stalls to avoid weightlifting, and at Georgia considered abandoning football altogether. So, you know, there are some issues. Yeah, he's a physical freak. You know, he's a planet theory guy, as Bill Parcells would argue. You know, only so many guys on the planet who are that size and that uniquely athletically gifted. But to me, Devonta Wyatt is a better player. You know, his all-round skill set, his ability to impact the game on all 3 downs. He wins because of his pass rush ability. You know, you can line him up at a 0, 1, 3, 5 technique. You'll spy the quarterback. He'll look like a twitched up linebacker when he does it. He'll loop in a stunt. You know, he's the sort of ball of versatile energy player that you have to account for in every snap. And I would just prefer that to a guy who's uniquely athletic, but might not be on the field a lot of the time.
All right. And the Dolphins have spent like the better part of the last 6 days coming into this podcast, signing very uninspiring zero techs. Yeah. John Jenkins is back. Benito Jones is back, which, you know, I never thought that I'd see him again. I don't think he's a very good player. John Jenkins is a good player. Probably he's just limited and older and probably beat up. It also stands to reason at 102, 125, you can find, and I'm looking at it right here, and there's several names on there. You could probably find a guy that can play 10 snaps a game as a zero tech with pick 102 or 125. Your thoughts on who those guys might be?
Well, you look at if you're looking for those big guys, Neil Farrell at LSU, who played really well at the Senior Bowl, I thought. He is 6'3", he's 338 pounds. He's nasty to me. He's got some day two upside. I think he's a really interesting player. But you look at those bigger guys, Jaden Peavy of Texas A&M is 6'5", 319 pounds. He's a really good special teams player as well. I think he blocked 4 field goals and PATs with the Aggies. He's a kind of toolsy. You watch his game against Arkansas, it's absolutely outstanding. You've got John Ridgway at Arkansas is 327 pounds. For teams looking for a pure nose tackle, he'll have an absolute lot of value. He's not gonna he's not gonna consistently collapse the pocket, but as a 2-down run stuffer who plays with good technique, keeps his teammates clean, then that's an attractive proposition. For anyone. You go down the list and look at, Marquand McCall of Kentucky, just a mammoth human being at 346 pounds, absolute gap plugger, real heft in the run game. But he's got a little bit of juice to press the pocket, unlike some of the bigger guys, he can press the pocket just a little bit. And you go down the list, Chris Hinton at Michigan, 312, Earl Booker at Stanford, 312. Tyree Stevenson at Tulsa is 365 pounds. He's active. He can't consistently get off blocks, but he's an oak at the point of attack, and that's kind of that's what you're looking for. Taylor Humphrey of Louisiana, another absolutely massive human being at 6'5", 349 pounds. He's played as a 3 technique and a 2 wide inside shade. He's an interesting player. He brings some nasty with him, but he might be a free agent, undrafted free agent kind of guy. He's had some off-field issues as well. But, there's a lot of bigger guys in the draft if you're just looking for somebody who can come in and play 6-8 snaps a game. Do you know what I mean?
All right. Moving on to linebackers. This is a pretty good class. And I think we both agree Nakobe Dean is probably the class of this class. Yeah. There's size issues there. Let's just say, is he scheme specific, or can he play in more broader schemes in the NFL? Or is Nakobe Dean just, he's going to have to play in a certain system?
I think it will be a concern at 5'11", 229 pounds. But, if you can keep him clean, if you can keep climbing linemen off him, then I think you'll be fine. So, having one of those big space eaters in front of you is great. I think where Dean wins scheme specifically or unspecifically is that he's so quick, he can get to landmarks quicker than other people can. But, if you're looking at a Jason Kelsey or some of the really fast interior linemen who can get to a landmark, then he will, that's where he might struggle. He's not unafraid to take on blocks. You really like him, but you want to make sure you really like him in that area, but you want to make sure that for him to be truly successful, he's covered up, because, for him to maximize that skill set, staying clean from climbing blockers at the second level is critical for his success. But I just love, he's got outstanding instincts. He's a phenomenal processor. He just seems a step ahead of everybody else, all the time. And his film is just littered with plays of that ilk where he just uses his instincts and his processing ability to get to the ball, to get to a spot, to get to a throw, to get to the quarterback just ahead of anybody else. You look at him. He lined up against Florida as a man corner on the outside, broke on the ball like a veteran cornerback, and took it for 6. To me, he's absolutely as safe as they come, and I think he'll have a superior career in the NFL.
Yeah. Now, one guy that I really liked, and I did a lot of work on him, and before we drafted Tyreek Hill at 29, which I think is a successful pick already, I really loved Damone Clark at 29.
Yeah, me too.
He will not play in 2022. The comparisons for Jalen Smith have already come out. Dare I say at 102, he will be available, and the Dolphins can just draft and stash. Would you? Is that something you would do? What do you think are his prospects in this year's draft?
I think it's a very interesting question. I don't think we can have a definitive answer because we haven't seen the medical. So if for those that don't know, he turned up at the combine, was absolutely fine, but the medical checks discovered that he needed spinal fusion surgery because he had a herniated disc. I thought ahead of the injury, he was one of the most under the radar players in the entire draft. I didn't think he played very well in 2020. I thought he was absolutely fantastic in 2021. He ticks a load of boxes. He is just a really good player. He's not amazing in coverage, but I think he is he's the leader of that defense. He's all over his teammates in terms of getting lined up. He moves so well laterally. He attacks gaps going forwards. He's got great eyes. He's got great discipline. When I say he's got great eyes, that means he just reads the field really well. He's mobile. He takes on backs in pass protection. He can get to the quarterback. Like laterally, I think he's the best in the class in terms of linebackers. You play, just make plays away from where he is. I just don't know the answer to that question. He could be on the board he should be on the board when Miami come to pick first at 102, but he could also be an undrafted free agent because it just depends on how that surgery affects him. I suspect when push comes to shove, he'll probably fall into day 3 because of it. But also, if he was an undrafted free agent, I also wouldn't be shocked. You just can't tell. But it feels like, this is a kid who's mentored by Devin White. He is he's just scratching the surface of what he can become. He was a team captain. He's loved at LSU. He's mature. He's got a 2-year-old daughter. I just think he's a fascinating player and just a really good linebacker.
Yeah, although you would disagree on the Jalen Smith comparisons because Jalen Smith, his issue was just, his legs and his knee
spine is just such an issue, though, isn't it? Like, you just can never tell about spine.
Yeah, like you really can't, and the evidence has been, not that it's going to happen to Damon Clark, but usually the evidence is once you have what is a neck injury or any type of spinal injury that requires any kind of surgery, which it seems like Damon Clark is going to need fusion surgery. Your career is pretty much short after that, if not over. So, yeah, as a UDFA, as a 7th round pick, maybe you draft him in the 7th round. If the word is that it's not all great, a draft and stash is something maybe you can do. But yeah, I don't think Jalen Smith. I don't think those are correct comparisons. Jalen Smith was just, it's a knee issue. And sure enough, his ticking time bomb of a knee actually blew up this past year as his career seems to be over because he's not on a roster as of right now. Now, everybody's trying to replace Atlanta Roberts, and we've been trying to replace him for 2 years because you kind of want somebody to play alongside Jerome Baker that can probably play 3 downs and maybe interchangeable with Jerome Baker on certain defenses that Josh Boyer likes to play. Who are those guys at 102? Because I know there's one obvious one, but you tell me he's not going to make it to 102. That's Troy Anderson.
Yeah, I don't think he will.
So who can be those guys at 102 or maybe even 125?
I wonder how teams think about Brandon Smith, the Penn State linebacker. He's just 20, 3-down guy, but he's just inconsistent. And I suspect the inconsistency comes with age. He's only going to turn, I think he was 21 this week, actually, bizarrely. He's a 4.52 40 runner, and he's that fast on tape. He just looks like he's falling off a cliff when he runs. He's that smooth a mover. He's that fast. He didn't allow a coverage touchdown over the last 2 seasons. He's very comfortable with a tight end or a back when he walks over to the slot and finds himself singled up. It's just the inconsistency. And I think, you'll probably see him as a sub-package cover backer earlier on. I mean, this was the number 12 overall prospect coming out. He was a Gatorade Player of the Year in Virginia. He's a very interesting prospect, but I think that consistency issues that come with age might see him fall into Miami's area. Probably goes earlier. Anderson, I think, just the scuttlebutt seems to feel like he's going significantly earlier. This is a kind of a defensive Taysom Hill. He's played running back at Montana State. He played a little linebacker. Then he was converted to quarterback for a season. Then he kicked back to defense. I mean, he had 2,260 yards rushing, 1,100-yard games on the ground. He ran a 4.42 at the combine. He started for a season at quarterback. He kicked inside to inside linebacker last year. Played outside the year before. He's toolsy. He's not overly instinctive, but he's incredibly athletic. Great tackler. little inconsistent in finding the right gaps, struggles to get off blocks a few times, sort of lacks the juice in his hands of some in the class, and he relies a bit more on quicks than physicality. Obviously can cover. Chad Muma of Wyoming is a guy, who might fall into that area. He's 6'3", he's 239, he's big, he's tough, he's smart, he's athletic, he can run. Missed one tackle in 2021, so he's a really good, high-energy tackling machine.
Yeah, he has. And by the way, he has freakish combine results.
Yeah, he's a little bit he can be a bit over-aggressive, and it sort of takes over-pursue plays. He reminds me of Logan Wilson, the former Wyoming linebacker who now plays for the Bengals. I think he's an interesting guy. There's a number of undersized guys. Like Jeremiah Gemmell of North Carolina has got the best eyes, is the most instinctive guy in the class. And you look at Zach Thomas when he was drafted by the Dolphins, he ran a 4.80, 7.40, but he had a, he had a 167 10-yard split. So instinctive, great eyes. And I'm not obviously saying that Gemmell is Zach Thomas, but there's nobody in the class that has better eyes or is more instinctive than he does. He's a little bit undersized at 226, so that will probably, but if you're looking for those bigger guys, there's a couple, like people talking about Leo Chanel of Wisconsin, a high motor, kind of big body. I think he's probably a 2-down player in the pros, so I don't think he's very good in coverage. He's a bit stiff. A couple of guys I quite like. Aaron Hansford of Texas A&M, who's came as a big body wide receiver, then switched to tight end, then moved to linebacker. He's had a couple of injuries, but he's smooth. He can really run. He's a good tackler. He moves well laterally, changes direction well. He's a very good blitzer. I think Hansford is an interesting player to keep an eye on as a 4-star recruit. So there's him. And then Darion Beavers, who's a UConn transfer who played for Cincinnati. I'm not a huge fan personally, but at 6'4", 252, he played well at the Senior Bowl in reps against tight ends, played very well against Trey McBride and against the kid out of UCLA, who I really like. I just felt on tape he was just a bit more clunky, a bit more inconsistent, but it feels like he's getting a sort of late second day, early third day grade, and that obviously falls into Miami's area. So, and then you've got kind of, you're looking like a Micah McFadden of Indiana. You're looking at a Mike Rose of Iowa State. He's kind of 2-down tackling machines who, could play a lot of special teams, but might not, the Jack Sanborns of Wisconsin, who might not break the lineup necessarily, but could offer some rotational ability. But I think, Brandon Smith is definitely one to keep an eye on, as is Chad Muma. And I like I said, the scuttlebutt makes it feel like Troy Anderson isn't going to get there.
All right, those are edge players. Those are linebackers. Those are interior defensive linemen. When we come back, we will talk defensive backs, safeties, cornerbacks, maybe even punters. But first, a word from a sponsor.
Are you a South Florida property owner with an insurance claim? Are you dealing with water, mold, or fire damage? Looking for a reputable, fully licensed, insured, and certified contractor? Water Cleanup of Florida is here for you 24 hours a day. When a disaster strikes in your home or business, you need specialized, fast, and reliable services. Water Cleanup of Florida understands the impact and stress an unexpected disaster may cause. With over 62 years of combined experience, Michael, Robert, and Eric and their team is prepared to handle any size disaster. The guys are born and raised in South Florida, so changing the narrative on the way contractors conduct business in South Florida is extremely important to them. Their objective is to make cleanup and insurance claim process painless and hassle-free. Water Cleanup of Florida is also a licensed building contractor, so they provide the A to Z service, one-stop shopping that busy homeowners and business owners require. There's no need to bring in other contractors. They will handle it all for you. Call or text them anytime at 561-408-7835 for immediate assistance. The number again, 561-408-7835. Water Cleanup of Florida.
And we're back. Hello, Simon. Now we're talking defensive backs.
I said, hello, Alf.
We'll start right here with a little bit of Dolphin talk. Do you share the optimism that most Dolphin fans, and it seems like coaches, have with Brandon Jones? Because if I had to bet, and I will, because at the end of this show, I guess we'll make some predictions. I'll make a bold one. Do you share their optimism with Brandon Jones that he's going to develop into what they want at the position?
I think he's already what they want at the position in many ways because
But he's so bad in coverage, Simon.
Yeah, but that's not what he's really used for. Do you know what I mean? He's used to
Mhm.
press the line of scrimmage. He's used as an alley runner. He's used as a box linebacker, big nickel, whatever you want to call it. He's one of the best blitzing defensive backs in the NFL across the board. I don't think they need him in coverage. You've got Eric Rowe. You've got Xavier Howard. You know, when you can match up on the outside the way that Miami do, you know, with their two corners, when you can put Nick Needham in the slot, when you've got Javon Holland who can play all over but is great in coverage, you've got Eric Rowe who can match up on tight ends, with the best tight ends in the league. You don't need Brandon Jones to be, he doesn't need to be Ronnie Lott. What he needs to be is exactly what he is. What I think is great for him is that the defensive scheme has stayed the same, that he's stayed the same coordinators, because I think that Josh Boyer, what's our defensive coordinator's name?
Josh Boyer.
Boyer will knows how to use him, and I think using him is as an alley runner who can start from deep and can run down ball carriers to the outside, which he's very good at, or can funnel ball carriers back inside to linebackers, or can just be around the line of scrimmage, be a menace, knock receivers and tight ends and backs off their timing, can press the line of scrimmage in terms of his ability to blitz. I think he's a very versatile player who square pegs round holes is something we talk about all the time with the Dolphins never having done. I think if you put Brandon Jones in a hole that he isn't used to, then he will not be very good. But they found the perfect role for him, and I think, more power to him.
All right, and let's talk about one guy in specific. He's gotten a lot of bad press this run up to the draft. I don't remember the last time there was this good a football player that had. I wouldn't say he had a bad combine. He just didn't run very fast. And that's Kyle Hamilton. He's a great player. He's one of the better safeties that has come down the pike in a long time. Your assessment of him as a player, as compared to what's been around the last few years.
Yeah, I don't agree that he didn't run well at the combine. He's 6'4", 290 pounds. He ran 4.59. I mean, I thought he ran well at the combine. He ran 4.74 at Notre Dame Pro Day, but who gives a fuck about that? Do you know what I mean? He's already run at the combine. And to me, that leads to questions about, I think it's a test case for not getting bogged down with what happens away from the field as it pertains to testing. Just turn on the tape and watch what he does. He's athletic. He's incredibly long, center fielder. He's got great instincts. He's just one of the top 3 players in the draft, regardless of position. Obviously, he's coming off a knee injury. He's not an amazing tackler. He can be a mediocre tackler at times. But you just look what he does in terms of the amount of ground. You can play him as a single high free safety, and he can get sideline to sideline. You watch him against Florida State in 2020. He gets sideline to sideline as well. In fact, he covers 3/4 of the field. He comes from the slot on the front side against Florida State and runs 3/4 of the field to make a diving interception on the sideline. Against Boston College in 2020, he reads a short comeback way quicker than is humanly possible to be able to process, and breaks on the ball only to drop the pick, jumps in front of Zay Flowers, will be a high pick next year, drops the pick. He's just got great recognition. His game's just soaked with all the stuff that you're looking for in a high level safety. He can come down into the box. He can run the alley. But you just want to see him dictating play from deep, because that skill set just allows defenses in front of him to do so much more, because it's just what we do with Javon Holland. You play him single high, you know that he can get around the field. He's patient. He's a high floor, high ceiling player who should develop into one of the best in the league at his position. And he's grown up around football. His father worked for the Falcons, so he grew up around Bob Whitfield and Jamal Anderson and Chuck Smith and Terrence Mathis, and he's been around football. He was 3rd on Bruce Feldman's freak list. I mean, that's some statement. He's a freak. I mean, his dad was a 3rd round pick of the New Jersey Nets in the NBA. Was a star in the Greek. Ended up playing the Greek league. Hamilton was born in Greece. He grew up there. He lived in Russia. He lived in Italy when his dad was playing basketball. He moved to Atlanta when he was 8 or 9 years old. I mean, he was at LSU summer camps under Jimbo Fisher when he was 8 years old. That's how highly rated he was. He was 3'10". He weighed 47 pounds. He ran an 8.2 in the 40. I'm not even making those numbers up. But yeah, he's a wonderful player.
All right. Other guys that fit the bill as far as the first 2 days, as far as safeties, because usually not many go in the first 2 days. I believe last year was how many? 4?
Yeah.
One of them was Javon Holland, which was a hell of a pick.
It's a strong safety class. I mean, you've got Hamilton at the top, but you've got Daxton Hill of Michigan, who's Devin McCourty for 2022. He's a lovely player, archetype of modern day secondary play. He's fluid, he's sudden, he's athletic, he can play nickel corner, he can play safety, he can run the alley, he's a special team standout. He should be a first round pick. Jaquan Brisker, Penn State, nobody attacks the line of scrimmage and offensive lineman like he does. He's a really good player. He can play center fielder as well as in the box. Lewis Sign of Georgia is just rangy. He's height, weight, speed, rangy, free safety, just tons of potential. Big hitter, urgent alley runner. Jalen Petrie at Baylor played really well. He's a bit of a Tyrann Mathieu sort of player. Big 12 Defensive Player of the Year. These are all kind of guys who are going to go top 40, top 45 picks. I don't think Miami will be looking at a safety. I really don't. But if they were, Brian Cook of Cincinnati, I think he's a really good player. He's an alpha enforcer. I suspect he's going to be a second day guy, sort of mid-second day guy. But
he flashed in every single game I watched him play.
Yeah. He had 370 snaps in the box. He had 291 at the third level and 196 in the slot last season. He's comfortable in single high. He's comfortable in the slot. He's got decent hip turn. He's got great instincts. To me, he's just a really solid starter. The guy that interests me that the Dolphins are bringing in this week actually is Nick Cross, the Maryland safety. He is a 4.34. He ran the fastest time of any safety. I think he's going to be scheme specific. I don't think you want him in cover situations or playing single high. I like how he plays with the ball in front of him in zone, but he's a bit sticky in the hips to be matched up against, twitchier outrunners. But I think he wins with the physicality and his ability to come down in the box from a split safety look and just knock the shit out of people because he's instinctive. He's got a good football IQ, but he comes down big and hard and flows to the football really, really well. I think for teams I think teams will look at him as a late day 2, early day 3 guy who are looking for that height, weight, speed guy at a strong safety because he's athletically gifted. And when he hits the box, it can be lights out.
Yeah. And talking about 102 and 125 as far as safeties, I'm going to bring up one guy. I think, and I've watched every single snap this kid's played at the University of Miami. Bubba Bolden just had a bad year. He's fast. He has size. He's always been an instinctual player, always been around the ball, has a knack for finding the ball. But as an NFL player, I don't know what round you'd give him, but I think that he's hurt his stock with his play this final year at the University of Miami. Your thoughts on Bubba Bolden?
Yeah, I don't like him as a player at all, actually. I think his game's kind of littered with issues. He is really inconsistent. He doesn't have great ball skills. He reminds me of Taylor Mays. Remember when people used to talk about Taylor Mays being...
Yeah.
And Taylor Mays couldn't take good angles. He missed tackles. He took bad angles in coverage. He took bad angles in the run game. And that, to me, is the heart of Bolden's problem. He triggers downhill, but he just misses angles. He'll consistently over pursue. He doesn't have great eyes. He doesn't have great vision. As a single high safety when he was in Miami, you just saw receivers running wide open over the top all the time. There's also some off-field issues. I mean, let's not forget that he played a year at USC, but left because he was going to be suspended for 2 years after he was found in violation of 8 sections of USC student code. He was at a party essentially where he alleged to have made criminal and death threats to other partygoers, including members of USC's women's volleyball team. He's had injury issues. He suffered a season-ending ankle injury in 2019. He hurt his shoulder in 2021, missed the rest of the season. I'm not a Bubba Bolden fan, I've got to say. I think he's high cut and he hits hard, but and he's got great size, but I just don't see it.
Yeah, he's another in a long list of University of Miami safeties that have size and can run fast. Sheldrick Redwine who's on the Dolphins roster right now, by the way, is the same thing. That 6'1", 210 pound, 4.40 type guy. I think Bubba Bolden's just the latest in that group. I don't think, let's call it 5th round, because somebody's going to look at 6'2", 215 pounds at 4.45 and say, okay, he can play for us. But yeah, not for me, Clive, as you would say.
One guy to keep an eye on would be Quentin Lake of UCLA. He's the son of Carnell Lake, the great All-Pro Steelers safety.
Yeah, number 37.
Yeah, he's just a good player. He's solid. He can play in the slot. He's great in 1v1s. He's rangy on the back end. He's got good special teams ability. He's got instinct. He's got smooth hips. He's got good eyes. He's got a great football brain. He's a solid tackler. This is just a guy who'll be a weapon on special teams. He'll be a plug-and-play player at free safety, at nickel corner, at strong safety, at dime linebacker. I think Quentin Lake is a sort of Miami Dolphins type safety, if that's what they're looking for in terms of just you look at the makeup of their safety room. He just fits the bill as somebody. The other guy's Reed Blankenship at Middle Tennessee State. Is just a same school as Kevin Byard. The coach who coached Byard says that Blankenship is a better player than Byard was at the same time. 400 career special team snaps, 3,638 defensive snaps, 51 starts. He is one of the rangiest safeties in the entire draft. He'll move forwards, backwards, sideways. He hustles. He's got great ball skills. He's got good instincts. He'll come down the alley and finish. Yep, lower level of competition is definitely a thing, but he was excellent at the Shrine practices. He's a really interesting player as well.
All right, and moving on to cornerbacks. Your draft guide is called Gridiron 2022 Draft Guide. If I had a draft guide, I would call it Searching for Aqib Talib, because every single year I bring him up because I remember the draft in 2008 where I loved Aqib Talib. I thought he was the perfect cornerback prospect. He ended up going 20th overall to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Since then, 5 Pro Bowls, 2 All-Pros, a Super Bowl champion. I guess that draft pick panned out. So every single year I look for Aqib Talib, that long, lanky, sticky, good man corner. This year we have one. He also has a great nickname, because his name is Ahmad Gardner, but they call him Sauce Gardner. Is he more Aqib Talib, or are we talking about Greedy Williams again?
I think he's Greedy Williams again.
Wow. Okay.
I haven't always bought the hype with him. I didn't think he was very good. So I watched him in a lot of isolation over the summer of last year and was like, I don't really understand why people are talking. Like, he got abused by Dylan Gabriel at UCF. He got abused by Calvin Austin at Memphis. He is so handsy. He is so grabby that he could end up easily as a penalty machine. And look, he's got it all. He's got size, he's got length, he's athletic, he's confident, he's tenacious. He's got loads of plus traits. He didn't give up a touchdown in his career. He didn't give up more than 13 yards to any receiver in 2021. But he does get a little flat-footed. He does get a little grabby. And that's what makes me nervous. He's incredibly thin. He's especially in the lower half. He's rail thin, but don't get me wrong, he is a very, very good player. But there are times down the field where he finds it impossible to keep his hands off a receiver. He will armbar receivers. He initiates contact time and again beyond 5 yards. And there's times when he just stops his feet moving. He falls behind in the rep. He gets unbalanced, and then he gets panicky, and he sort of fights to get back in the play. He's tugging, he's pulling. It's I think better technique will absolutely help him. But people talking about him as going second overall, I just do not see that. Not in a really good cornerback class. Here's a little quiz section, and I guess I'm giving up the lead here. But do you know which is the most commonly mocked name to number 4, the New York Jets? Yeah, well, I mean, they need corners, so
yeah, it's Sauce Gardner. So that makes you feel good as a Dolphin fan now, if this is what you believe of Sauce Gardner.
But you're playing in a division with, Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle and Stephon Diggs and a high-level passing attack in Buffalo, and so it's not surprising the Jets need corners. But yeah, I mean, you can only pick the players that are on the board. So, but yeah. I think he's a guy. Look, don't get me wrong. I think he's a really good classic press corner. He's got speed. He's physical. He can redirect really well. He uses his hands in terms of that physicality better. But like in 2020, he rarely touched a receiver at the line at all, but the aggression just it feels to me like, he could get penalized a lot.
All right. And if we're talking, and you said that, every time you looked up, there was games where Ahmad Gardner was getting abused. Derek Stanley has put more Alabama wide receivers in the first round than I don't know what. Maybe it's just the Alabama wide receivers that they're all pretty good. But his tape is littered with him getting absolutely smoked against Alabama. Your thoughts of him as a prospect? What's happened to him? Because I'm seeing him mocked in the top 10. So let's not say that, he's done this precipitous drop. But in 2020, about 2 years ago, some of the first mocks that Mel Kiper had, the 2-year advanced mocks, had him in the top 3. So he hasn't dropped too much. I don't get it as a prospect. He's a fine cornerback, but top 10 for me, no. Your thoughts?
You're buying the 2019 tape.
Yeah.
He looked a rock solid top 3 pick after that freshman season. He should have won the Thorpe Award. I thought he was the best defensive player in defensive back in college football. There are talks about legendary 1v1 matchups with him and Jamar Chase. I think he's got some of the best feet I've seen in 20 years in terms of a cornerback. To me, he drips size, length, patience, footwork, explosion, ball skills, instincts. I'm not surprised that in 2020 he had a down year, given that he was 19 years old, came off a national championship season where he was the best corner in college football and had a bit of a sophomore slump. That doesn't surprise me at all. I think the issue for me is that he got injured last year, and we really didn't see what he was. So you are buying, like I said, the 2019 tape, but you throw on that film, you see a physical guy, somebody who can redirect with his hands. He's balanced. The feet are brilliant. Like I said, he can crowd his man. He's subtle in how he works his man to the sideline. But he's inconsistent, because of what's happened, because of the injury, the foot injury, which has become a thing. He suffered a torn ligament in his left foot, only played 3 games. You're buying the 2019 tape, but I think talent-wise, he might be the most gifted player in the whole draft in terms of his pure athletic talent.
All right, we gave our listeners one spoiler alert, which is Aiden Hutchinson, which I don't think it was much of a spoiler. A lot of people think he's the best edge player in the draft. This one is a spoiler, and we'll give him just this one. Remember, buy the draft guide. I own it. Many own it on OnlyFans. Just get it. You could tell people again how to get it, Simon, after you tell us about your number 1 rated corner, Andrew Booth, because he's not mine. I'll give you mine afterwards, but tell us about your number 1 rated corner, Andrew Booth Jr. from Clemson.
Yeah, I just think you talk about Clemson corners, and over the last few years, you talk about Clemson corners coming to the NFL, but that kind of narrative has begun to change. You look at AJ Terrell, become one of the best cornerbacks in the league, top 5 corner in the league, really. And it's not really fashionable to have anybody over Sauce Gardner, but I thought in multiple games over 2 seasons, there was just no reason for me not to have him as the number 1 guy. He is raw, 15 starts, 981 defensive snaps in 3 seasons. There have been some mental lapses and some focus issues, but he's got everything you look for in a number 1 corner. He's scheme diverse. He can play zone. He can play man. He's physical. He's athletic. He's got great feet. He's balanced. He's an excellent tackler. He will mirror. He can sit in the hip pocket. He can flip his hips and run. He can sit in trail. He's got great short area quickness, and he attacks the ball as well as J.C. Jackson or an Xavier Howard in terms of making interceptions. He's just got tremendous leaping ability. He's got great speed, both in the early strides, but also down the field. I think he's a really, really good player. I don't think he had a great 2021, but I think he is, as a team captain, he was the 8th best player overall in the nation in high school. He's got some knee issues, some leg injuries. He hurt his knee as a high school senior. He's had some tendonitis there. He tore a patella tendon as a freshman at Clemson, but on the field, on tape, I just think he's a legitimately really good player.
All right, and tell the people again how they can get the draft guide.
So if you you can look at my social at Cy Clancy, at 3 yards per carry. You can go to at Gridiron or at Read Optional, but you can just type in either Read Optional into your search engine or go to readoptional.substack.com/draft guide. That's Read Optional, READOPTIONAL.substack.com/draft guide.
And of
it's
course, check our own Twitter account at 3 yards per carry. There's going to be something in there. I'm certain. My fear in this draft is that the Jets will grow a brain, pass on Ahmad Gardner at 4, and lay in wait at number 10 and take Trent McDuffie. I think he is going to be such a good player in the NFL. The only concerns that people seem to have on him as far as scouting reports is his length. He has 29 and 3/4 inch arms. I don't know what his wingspan is. I do know his tape. I've watched him play. I just absolutely love the player. He's absolutely fearless. He will come in and stick you. He'll bait throws. He can run. He ran 4.44. I absolutely love Trent McDuffie. I think he's a surefire pick, and I hope that he does not fall to one of our direct competitors, namely the Jets, because I think he's exactly what they need. Lance Zierlein also loves him. He gives them a fabulous NFL comparison. Jair Alexander, your thoughts? Do you agree with him? And your thoughts on Trent McDuffie overall as a player?
I like him a lot. I actually don't think he's the best corner coming out of Washington. I think that's actually Kyler Gordon. But I think he's a really good player. I think he's a high floor, safe, hugely consistent, really solid guy. You mentioned it. He kind of lacks the length, certainly lacks the production of some in the class, but just solid, translatable skill set. He's a hustle player. You know, he plays the run really well. He's got a real nose for the run. He's got experience. Jimmy Lake, the Washington DB's coach, runs a sort of cover three scheme. Quick feet, good body control, trails really well. He's just a fun guy to watch. I think and he's actually the 6th corner on my board, which is testament to how good this corner class is. Because he ran a 10.80 200 meters in 2019. He's a film study like maven. He absolutely loves studying film. I actually have a comparison to Jair Alexander for another player in this draft, not Trent. But yeah, I think McDuffie's an excellent player, and I suspect he'll probably go higher than I have him on the board. But just for me, there were just a couple of other players who are just a hair better.
In your opinion, he would be overdrafted at number 10 to the Jets, or that's just fine?
No, I think that's not where I draft him.
Okay.
Because I have Booth, Gardner, Stingley, Kyler Gordon, his teammate at Washington, Roger Mccreary of Auburn, and then McDuffie. But I suspect the NFL has McDuffie higher, and that's absolutely fine. They're the NFL. I'm just me. But McCreary is the guy that reminds me of Alexander.
Okay.
Actually.
Roger Mccreary of Auburn.
Yeah. So just size, physicality, ball skills. They just, I watched him up close at the Senior Bowl. His hips are ridiculous. He is so smooth as a mover. He's just an alpha. He's battle tested in the SEC. He's tough. He's really instinctive. He's just a really good bump and run press corner. Can play inside or out. Some teams think he's a nickel. I think he plays outside. He's got really short arms, 28 inches or something. They're very short, but he's a good player. He's a good player.
Yeah,
this is Braylon Burks. You watch him against Mechie. You watch him against Jameson Williams. You watch him against the kid from LSU, whose name completely escapes me, but will be a high pick next year. He's really good.
Every year, everybody wants an Alabama cornerback. If you've noticed, one has gone in the first round, going on 4 years now. The Alabama guys this year, do you want them? Are those guys that should be highly drafted, should be highly thought of? I'm not a big fan of Armour Davis, Joshua Jobe.
I think he's one of my favorite players in the draft. Actually, if he's for one more year, he'd have been a high first rounder. I think you go back and look. He's only a 1-year starter. You go back and look at him at the start of 2021, and then look at him towards the end of 21. The light comes on midway through the season, and towards the back end of the year, I mean, it clicks really quickly. He has got an incredibly intriguing skill set. He'll play outside. He played inside. He plays safety. His ability, and he's raw, but his ability as a technician is way more advanced than guys that will go in the first round. He's patient. He will bait his opponents. He doesn't open up his hips too quickly. He'll transition. He's quick. He's got fluid feet. He uses his arms really well. He can mirror backwards. He can mirror laterally. This is high level stuff from a guy. Look, there's things to clean up. Yeah, his feet get caught under him a little bit when he transitions. He's a little bit high in his back pedal, but these are like really easy to coach. He ran a 4.3 at the combine. He's great in run support. I mean, to me, this is a future cornerback one in a press or off man scheme, because all the issues I think are eminently coachable. He was the number 1 corner in the state of Alabama, the number 3 corner in the nation. He works with the same footwork coach that Xavier Howard works with. He's nicknamed the kick slide king because his feet are so good. He ran a 10.87 100 meters in high school. He reminds me of Darius Slay. He's just he's a high character kid, football junkie. I think he's really good. Josh Jobe is the other corner who's been around for years at Bama. He's feisty, chippy. He's been penalized 18 times in the last 2 seasons, which is a massive issue. But I quite like him. He reminds me of Dion Bush, the former Bear or the current Bears corner. I think he probably could end up as a nickel safety. I like him, but that he does have some issues. But he doesn't tackle particularly well. He loves a little late push or an extra shoulder, those sorts of things. But yeah, he's like a mid to late day 3 guy.
All right. You liked Trent McDuffie's teammate. Do you like Ahmad Gardner's teammate, Kobe Bryant?
Yeah, I don't mind him. I don't dislike him. I think he obviously is the Thorpe Award winner. He's 63 games, started 50. So, you wonder kind of how much better he's going to get. But he's a bit like I don't watch a lot of basketball, but he's a bit like a point guard. He's got that sort of fast break mentality to swoop on the ball, good ball skills. He understands routes and landmarks and sit down points in zone. I think he's best suited as a zone corner because he just understands the nuance of zone defense. He's got high football. He's a coach on the field, high football IQ. He ran a 4.4 at his pro day, but I don't see that speed. He's not really twitchy, but he's good in run support. I think he's sort of solid, unspectacular. I wonder how much better he'll get. But I think in the right scheme, he'll be a decent player with a heavy dose of special teams thrown in.
All right. And now we're going to move on to 102 and 125 and what the Dolphins can use there. It stands to reason that Xavier Howard will be here long term. Byron Jones, probably not. Maybe if you read the writing on the wall, maybe one more season here. Nick Needham is a guy that just signed a 1-year tender. So that's a guy that they're going to probably want to re-sign. First of all, where do you stand on Noah Igbenogany? And at 102, 125, cornerback makes a lot of sense, especially on such a deep class.
They brought a lot of corners in for workouts. I think for Noah, it's shit or bust, obviously. If it's not going to, I was told by one Dolphins front office member that if it's not going to work with Sertan and Madison, it's not going to work at all. So this is the year for him. At 102 for the Dolphins, I think Armour Davis, if he gets to 102, would be an absolute lockdown. At 102, I think there's a couple of there's a small school kid, Zion McCollum, who I thought played really well at the Senior Bowl. He runs a 4.33, Sam Houston State kid. I think he is he's got great upside, good football brain. Marcus Jones, the kid at Houston, inside, outside, can play safety, can play wide receiver, played quite a bit of wide receiver last year as well. He's a great return man. The Dolphins already said they're looking for a return man as well. I think he's probably a slot, but he's just a great playmaker in the return game. And there's a couple other guys that they brought in. There's a kid at Washington, Jalen Watson, who the Dolphins brought in, Washington State, sorry, who somebody tipped me off about in Mobile, is generating a bit of buzz. He's got some upside. He's got he's really inexperienced. He signed with USC. He signed with USC, then he went to Ventura Community College, was a 2-time All-American, then signed back with USC, never enrolled. So went back home to Georgia and worked at Wendy's for a season before signing with Washington State. Played 4 games for Wazoo in 2020 and then a full season in 2021. He was a Pac-12 first team Pac-12 player of the year. Very physical, big, a 6'2", 197. I thought he looked really good at the Senior Bowl. He's raw, but he's patient. He can bait receivers. He can bait corners. He's a really good gunner on special teams. He's an interesting guy that I think the Dolphins might look at in that sort of area.
All right. And I guess that will conclude all the position players. We're going to talk about specialists and namely one guy, really. Dolphins sign Thomas Morstead. Do you think that keeps them from going after the punt god, Matt Araiza? And do they even have a shot at 102? Because I've seen him mocked earlier than 102.
Yeah, I don't think they'll take a punter at 102 given the lack of picks they've got. I mean, he's a great punter. I mean, he's the Bryson DeChambeau of punting. I think
Yeah.
the field flipper.
For people who don't know who Bryson DeChambeau is, very long hitter on the PGA Tour.
The golf scientist as well. He's puts science into all his clubs are the same length and all that sort of stuff. Araiza is essentially the same in a way. He does a lot of technical work on it. So he has a strange drop. It comes from the opposite hand to his foot. So you see punters holding the ball flat in their right hand boot with their right hand. Araiza holds in his left and drops to his right. Carries a ball around with him the whole time, practicing things. He's actually a really good place kicker as well. But I mean, he has 18 punts of 60 yards. He has 2 80-yarders and 1 90-yarder. And when you consider, of the 2 80-yarders, you consider there's only been 10 80-plus yard punts in the NFL since the turn of the century. He had 2 last year. He averaged 51.2 yards per kick. People say, oh, what about you out kicking your coverage? But he's really not, because what happens is he kicks and then the return man has to back himself up 5, 10, 15 yards to get the ball, which allow the kick coverage team to get down the field to where they would have been to their landmarks if the kick had been kicked by a normal human being. He's just got a foot like a traction engine. It just comes off, just boom. He's a fantastic punter.
What do you think he
got to go on day 2? But I think
okay, so you got him day 2.
He has the talent to go on day 2. I don't know that he will.
All right. To close this out, we're gonna do something a little bit different here. We've done it before. One time we've hit it like 3 times. We actually been pretty good at this. Okay, it's very hard to actually pick at what they're gonna have at 102. So let's just say who will be the Dolphins' first draft pick in this draft. I will go first.
Go on.
Man, I've been leaning Rachaad White forever.
Yep.
But something tells me that James Cook is going to be the guy. He'll be the first running back for them. He'll be their first pick in the NFL draft. I want to say Rachaad White, but I'm not going to. I'm going to say that their first draft pick this coming week is going to be James Cook out of Georgia, the running back.
Yeah, I think that's a really good shout. I'm going to say one of 4 players: James Cook, Zach Tom, D'Angelo Malone, or Jalen Armour-Davis.
Those are, I like all of those players. All those. Zach Tom is a good shout out as well. By the way, I think that's who Chris Kaufman thinks will be the pick. He thinks that they have him earmarked and that they might package all their picks just to move up to secure him. All right. Well, that's gonna do it. All right. That's our draft guide. I will edit a version of this where, I'm going to take out all the fluff. I'm just going to put all the analysis into it. It's going to be about 3 hours worth. Okay. So you're going to have plenty to listen to as you lead into the draft. Enjoy the draft. We will be in Las Vegas. Me and Chris Kaufman will be in Las Vegas. Simon did not make the trip, is not going to make the trip, unfortunately. But, why would he? You're just going to go and you're going to stare at the screen for 2 days waiting for them to pick in the in the 3rd round.
Next year.
Yeah, next year. Well, where is it next year anyway?
That's
a great question.
I can't remember, actually. Let's have a look.
Oh, it's in Detroit?
Detroit. Cleveland next year.
Oh, it's in Cleveland. It's going to be in Cleveland twice?
Oh, no, I've just made that up completely. So Kansas City 2023.
Okay, that's a worthwhile trip.
Yeah. Then I think Detroit 2024, is that right?
Yeah, I don't know why they're even doing that.
Yeah.
But I guess they're not going to give them a Super Bowl, so give them a draft. They got to give Miami one. They got to do a draft down here. It's perfect down here.
Imagine on South Beach.
Absolutely. It'll be a great draft. You could have it right there on the sand. The Las Vegas one's going to be great. Las Vegas is a big event town. They're going to have the Super Bowl in a couple of years because this year is in Phoenix, and then the following year is going to be in Las Vegas. So Las Vegas is getting a draft and a Super Bowl 2 years from now. So great event town. That's going to be a great draft. Try to enjoy it, people. I know you're going to be sitting around waiting forever. We're going to try to offer you some content this week. Dolphins don't have too many picks, so don't expect too much content. But be looking for plenty of stuff out on our podcast feeds See you then.
Thanks for listening to 3 Yards Per Carry. You can subscribe via iTunes, on Podbean, or your usual podcast provider.